Hello, I'm Dr. Manuel G. Saldivar. I'm a cognitive psychologist and a university faculty member. On this channel, I focus on ideas and concepts that will help you become more successful as a college student. Please join me for today's episode. Emotional intelligence, which is sometimes referred to just by the abbreviation EI, basically has to do with the process by which we understand and manage our own emotions as well as the emotions of others. There's evidence going back for 20 or 30 years now that individuals who have strong levels of emotional intelligence, who are good at understanding and managing emotions, their own and other people's, tend to have higher levels of job satisfaction, tend to be happier in their lives all the way around. So this is an important skill to develop, and it is a skill that can be developed. If you don't have the strongest EI at this point in your life, that's okay. You can make an effort and strengthen your EI over time. Emotional intelligence, EI, has 4 components that I'll describe in more detail here in a moment. These 4 components are self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, and relationship management. Self-awareness is the ability to recognize your own emotional state and how that affects your thoughts, your behaviors, your decision making. So, for example, all of us may have had situations where we are starting to work on a task, on some project, something we have to do at home or at work, and we're in a bad mood. Something has happened to upset us, and we start working on the project, on the thing, whatever it is, and we're just not doing a good job because we're upset about some totally different and unrelated situation. This self-awareness, this ability to understand I'm doing a bad job at whatever this task is, I'm not doing my best because I'm upset about whatever happened earlier in the day or whatever happened yesterday or whatever it is, that's an example of self-awareness. Now, sometimes we will have obvious issues, obvious situations that have made us upset, and in those cases, our self-awareness comes fairly easily. What is more of a challenge, what really requires a higher or stronger level of emotional intelligence, is when things have happened or are happening in your life that are more subtle. Things that are not necessarily obviously bad can still affect your decision making, how you feel towards other people or certain situations, how you do or do not do certain other things. If you feel like, well, self-awareness, how hard is it? Well, it's not that hard when something has obviously gone wrong, and it makes sense why we're upset or why we're not at our best. But it's also important to develop the self-awareness when things are not obviously wrong, when something may be amiss but we're not quite exactly sure what it is because that thing is not as easy to identify as other bad things that may happen to us or things that may upset us. The second aspect or component of emotional intelligence is social awareness. So this is kind of the outward equivalent of self-awareness. Social awareness is about recognizing other people's emotional states and how their emotional states, how their feeling affects their actions, their decisions, their behaviors. Again, most of us have had experiences like this. We may have a close friend, relative, coworker who ordinarily, let's say, is very friendly, very helpful, easy to talk to, but you may encounter them one day and they're in a bad mood, they won't talk to you, or they're short in their responses with you. In other words, they're obviously acting in a different way. It might not be that big of a stretch or that difficult for us to practice social awareness to understand, well, this person is ordinarily very friendly, very easy to talk to. Something is wrong. Something's happened to them. Something's going on. That's why they're not acting in their normal way. Again, this kind of social awareness is not that difficult. If it's obvious that someone is not on their game, is not behaving as normal, then it's probably not too much of a stretch to guess that something's happened to them that has affected their emotional state, their decision making, their behavior. You're really showing that you have emotional intelligence when you're able to develop the social awareness when it's not perfectly obvious, when it is more subtle that something is slightly off and you have started to pick up on it, or you're able to pick up on it, and perhaps one of the things you can do is try and find out, communicate with this person about what's going on, so that you have a better understanding of the situation, but also perhaps be able to help them manage their behaviors. So self-management is your ability to think before you act, to reflect on what you are doing, especially to reflect on how your feelings, how your emotional state has an impact on how you are behaving, how you are acting. So an example here that's very important for college students to develop is what we call professionalism. I'll discuss this more in future videos on communication, but professionalism covers a lot of territory, but one aspect of being a professional is being able to put forth your best effort to do the best job you can, even if you are upset, even if there is something going on in your life that can cause a distraction. If you're a professional, if you have good self-management, you can put aside whatever it is that has upset you, whatever problem you have, at least long enough to perform a certain task, to do a certain job. For example, let's say, and obviously hope this never happens to anyone, but let's say you have a loved one who is in a car accident and they have to be taken to the emergency room. That ER doctor is a human, just like I'm a human and you're a human. I'm sure in the history of the world there have been ER doctors who go to work in a bad mood because they had a fight with their spouse, or they got in a minor car accident going to work, or whatever. And so they show up to work and they're not in the best mood. Obviously, if your loved one needs this ER doctor to help them, you would expect an ER doctor, a professional, someone who would not have that job if they didn't have a lot of education, a lot of training, someone who typically is being very well compensated to do the job of an ER doctor. It would be natural for all of us to say, look, I'm sorry you had a fight with your wife or your husband, I'm sorry you got in a minor car accident or whatever, but my loved one is here in the ER now, and I need you as an ER doctor to do your best job to help take care of my loved one. This would be an example on the ER doctor side of self-management. You would expect them to be able to understand, look, I have serious responsibilities as an ER doctor. Whatever problem I walked in with, whatever had me feeling grumpy this morning, I need to set that aside long enough to help this patient who needs me. That would be an example, again, on the doctor side of self-management. Sorry for the interruption, but if you're enjoying this video, please like, subscribe, and click on the bell icon for notifications. The outward-looking equivalent of that is relationship management, and that's when you interact with others in a courteous way, in a clear and concise way. You're taking advantage of your social awareness, your understanding of their emotional state, and incorporating that into your interaction, whether that goal of that interaction is to accomplish something, to do some work, or to help them change their emotional state. So two short examples here of relationship management. Let's say you have a coworker who is having a bad day. They've had a fight with their spouse. Their children are arguing with them. Whatever. They come into work. They're in a bad mood. But you need that person to work with you that day because you have an important project to complete together that's due at the end of the day. If that person doesn't have the self-management and the self-awareness to be able to bring themselves into the workplace and set aside whatever their issues are and work on the project with you, then you have a couple choices. One is you could just give up and say, well, I'll do the work myself. That may or may not be realistic or feasible. You could just shut the person off and say, go away and don't come back until you're yourself again. Again, that may or may not be feasible. Perhaps the best approach would be for you to practice emotional intelligence, and if they can't be self-aware, they're not being self-aware, if they can't self-manage, then you can use your social awareness and your relationship management skills, those aspects of emotional intelligence, to talk to them and say, hey, I understand you're having a bad day, I understand you have problems, whatever they are, and I sympathize with you, and you know what, I'm happy to talk to you about them and maybe offer you advice or just listen to what you have to say about your problems later. But right now we have a deadline, we have a project to work on that's due at 4 p.m. or whatever, so let's focus on that to get it done. I'll do my best to support you in getting this work done, and then once we do that, I can be a sympathetic ear to listen to your problem, or I can give you whatever advice I might be able to offer. So this communication process, you're using emotional intelligence to help someone become more self-aware, to help them manage their own emotions, and in turn hopefully you'll be able to accomplish whatever it is you need to accomplish. But the real takeaway here is that emotional intelligence, these abilities, these skills, don't necessarily come naturally to everyone, but they can be developed with practice, with effort. You can get better at emotional intelligence, whether that is on the self side or on the social or other side. Now, at this point in the presentation, some students start to think that emotional intelligence is just about being a nice person or helping other people. That's part of it, but there are very practical benefits to developing your emotional intelligence. So this is not just about being a nice guy, nice person. You do benefit yourself, you help yourself out in the long term by developing your emotional intelligence. People that have higher levels of emotional intelligence, people who have built up this skill, tend to be better communicators, and this is a very valuable skill in the modern workplace as well as in other aspects of our lives. People with high EI report having reduced stress. You are not ever going to be completely free of problems or challenges as a human being. That's just the way their life is. But if you can learn to deal with challenges, whether they're problems you might have or problems others have that in turn affect you, if you can learn awareness and the ability to manage your own and others' emotions, then that will typically reduce your stress level. People with good emotional intelligence typically have many fewer conflicts with other people because they're able to diffuse situations that can kind of go off track by showing awareness, by managing that relationship. And then finally, people that do have high intelligence tend to show improved empathy, an improved ability to understand someone else's point of view. Why is someone feeling the way that they're feeling? And this kind of feeds back to improving communication, reducing stress. So being an empathetic person can help other people, but by helping others, you actually are helping yourself by diffusing problematic situations, by being able to get everyone around you as much as you can on an even keel and make everyone more productive. One final piece that's related to this concept of emotional intelligence, related but not the same, is psychological balance. Psychological balance describes the ability to manage all of your responsibilities with a minimum amount of stress. People that have psychological balance typically have strong emotional intelligence, and this means that of all the complications, all the challenges, all the issues that they face in their life, they learn over time how to compartmentalize problems. That means when you go to work, when you go to school, whatever's happened before work, before school that might have put you in a bad mood, for example, those problems may not disappear while you're doing your thing at work or at school, but instead of letting them become a distraction, you can set them aside mentally, focus on the stuff you need to do while you're working, while you're studying, and then you can come back to those problems later. That gives you a sense of balance. If you know that you have individuals in your life, perhaps who are a source of stress or a source of some particular difficulty or challenge, you may not be able to snap your fingers and make those people disappear. Most of us don't get to choose our bosses, for example. So if you have a boss maybe you have trouble getting along with, you can either choose to let that be a source of frustration and let that upset you all the time, or you can try and find ways to cope, to say, you know what, this person and I may not see eye to eye on certain things. They may think about the world in different ways or have a different approach to doing a job, to being part of a certain profession. But I'm not going to let that get to me. I'm going to focus on the stuff I can control. I'll do things that I can control directly the way that I think they should be done. And if other people have a different view, then I'll just deal with it when it comes up. Problems certainly exist in life. Challenges certainly exist in life. Usually we don't have a choice about those issues existing, but we do have some choice, some control as to how we react to problems. How do we react to challenges? And if you try and pursue psychological balance, if you put things in their place, if you're able to compartmentalize issues and focus on things you need to do, when you need to do them, and go back to those problems that will always be there later after you've done what you need to do in the short term, then you might find that your psychological balance will improve because you're able to build walls mentally and let problems be problems wherever they are, whatever part of your life, but still have other parts of your life where those problems are not intruding. So today, in our episode, we discussed emotional intelligence. I explained the 4 components of EI, which are self-awareness, social awareness, self-management, and relationship management. We talked about the benefits of EI and then concluded by describing how one of the outcomes of having strong EI, in particular, is being able to develop this sense of psychological balance. I hope you found this information helpful. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll click on the thumbs up icon below. And if you really enjoyed it, please subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications by clicking on the bell icon. YouTube will notify you of future videos added to this channel. Remember, college success is challenging, it takes work and effort, but it is certainly within your grasp. Good luck.